paying the price for their Ponzi-style scheme. Former investment brokers Timothy McGinn and David Smith will pay for defrauding millions of dollars from hundreds of clients in our area. Not only with a prison term, but also they will be splitting millions of dollars in restitution. Matt MARKHAM was in the federal courthouse in Utica today when the judge threw the book at both men. Matt now joins us live from Utica with more on that and also what the victims had to say. Matt?
Good evening, Dory. This is a day that victims have been waiting a long time for. Victims who lost everything they had invested with Timothy McGinn and David Smith. Mr. McGinn was convicted or found guilty on more counts at trial, 27 out of 29. As a result, he faces 15 years in prison. Mr. Smith faces 10. Both of them will have to come up with $5 million to pay in restitution. During the sentencing today, family members, the two defendants themselves and their lawyers had made a case that the maximum, which could have been life in prison, was too severe. They asked for a lesser sentence, but the prosecution, the government here, believes that the justice that was given out was well received and was well deserved by both these two men.
And the jury found that they were guilty of serious crimes involving fraud and an extensive cover-up that directly hurt hundreds of people and cost them millions of dollars.
Some of those investors spoke to the judge before Timothy McGinn and David Smith were sentenced, before the co-defendants were taken into custody. One of these spent many nights thinking of the men spending millions of dollars on their lavish lifestyles while their investors were sleeping soundly. She went on to say it will be years until those who lost everything will sleep soundly again.
I don't think there's any sentence that can really undo the harm that has befallen many of these victims. And so in that respect, perhaps there can never be closure. But what I'm hopeful is that this is one step in the process for them, and that we can continue to work with the receiver to maximize the recovery of assets and make them as whole as possible.
At trial, lawyers claimed a recovery plan would restore losses to investors had the government not closed the McGinn and Smith firm, or even after that.
One of the great deficiencies in this system is that the people who know the business best, were best able to make this work, were not allowed to participate with the receiver. The receiver doesn't know this business. Tim McGinn and David Smith do.
Though 841 people must now rely on family or have to make tough sacrifices because of what the jury ruled McGinn and Smith fraudulently pocketed, many more may be spared by the time the defendants will spend in prison.
The sentences imposed today send a strong and clear message to those entrusted with investor funds that fraudulent business practices and tax cheating will not be tolerated.
The defense here was that these two men tried to employ a model of business that just didn't work given the financial difficulties that the country faced around the year 2008 and even after that when the whole economy went to collapse. But speaking in the court today, Ms. Coombe had said that none of us would have been sitting in the courtroom if this was just an ordinary failed business, that there was something of intent here. Appeals will be filed by both these men, and the government says it will do anything it can to restore whatever can be restored to the victims in this case. It is estimated that about $30 million was involved that was essentially lost from nearly 1,000 people, a lot of them in the capital region. Reporting live in Utica, I'm Matt MARKHAM, CBS 6 News.